Hello. Before the video starts, I'd like to point out that I am aware that there are some sections of the following video where I can't be heard over the audio of the game. This is all on me. Rather than redoing the footage, I've left it in as is. But yes, I'm just not very good at this sort of thing, so feel free to tell me off in the comments. It's fine. Thanks very much, and please enjoy our feature presentation. Hello, it's All Your Bass Chris here, and today this video is all about how to set up a Mister, what is the Mister project about, and a couple of demonstrations on how it works essentially. So, the Mister project is an open source project trying to recreate the logic of old arcade machines, old computer systems, and old consoles. And I'm using the word old a lot. These are from my youth. If you're born in the 90s or the noughties or even later than that, then these things will be way back in the past. But I'm 41 years old and I grew up with a lot of these classic systems, so as you can imagine, this is very exciting for me. Whether it's exciting for you, it remains to be seen. But the issue a lot of people have with the Mister is that it's sort of perceived as very hobbyist, and it really isn't. It's quite simple to set up, which I'm going to talk about now. So, if you want to get into the Mister project, then you need, first of all, to pick up an FPGA board that is compatible. At the moment, there's only the one board, and that is the de-10 Nano by Terasic. I believe that's how it's pronounced. And get hold of one of those. That is currently what is appearing over there. That is a de-10 Nano board, and I'll talk a little bit about it. So, out of the box, you get this, which it looks like a slightly bigger Raspberry Pi. And the magic source is this big chip here in the middle. That is the FPGA. This can be reprogrammed on the fly to become custom chips. It's mind-boggling, and it's a bit beyond the scope of this video to explain how it works. But FPGAs, it's like magic, essentially. You also get Ethernet port, HDMI, barrel jack for power, and it's cool. So this is the basic board. You will need to get some little add-ons to get everything running the way you'd want it to. So I'm going to show you my Mister. So this is the previous incarnation of the Mister, and on this bit, as you can see, I've added a fan powered by the Mister itself, and that's a little fan on a heatsink just to keep that chip cool. It's not really... Cooling isn't a massive issue with these boards. They are industrial boards, but it's probably a good idea to try and keep it below 100 degrees centigrade if you can. And here, you'll see that there's a little expansion board pushed onto these pins here, and that is some extra SD RAM. Some of the cores do require a little extra RAM, but it literally is a case of just dropping it on there, and it looks like this is the extra little RAM board here, and that just pushes straight onto the pins. It's even got a helpful, this side faces outwards, so you know exactly how to install that. So, oops, excuse me. So here we are, though. This is the board out of the box. As you can see, it's got a little acrylic plate on it, and that's that. A couple of things you will need to purchase before you can go any further. You will need probably a bigger SD card. One comes in the box, 8 gigabytes in the box. You'll want bigger because you'll want to put games and things on it. You will need some kind of power supply if you're in the UK, because it comes with a US power supply. And I picked up this USB to barrel jack adapter for £3.70 and hooked it into a nice high-powered USB hub, and that does the job nicely for my Mister. You will also need a on-the-go hub. This is because the Mister doesn't have general USB ports like a Raspberry Pi. It has an on-the-go socket, but this will, you hook this in and you get yourself 4 USB sockets, and that way you can hook up keyboards, mice, and a USB joystick, or even an external hard drive to it. Cool. So let's talk about price of entry. The de-10 Nano is over £100 in the UK. It is not cheap. Raspberry Pis are much, much cheaper. Might be a better solution for you. I'm not gatekeeping this. I'm just saying that if you're not sure about emulation, you might want to try a cheaper solution first. If you're absolutely positive that you want the very, very best you can get without the original hardware, this is the thing to go. So get one of these. You can buy them from companies such as mouser.co.uk, DigiKey. They sell them, and they're generally just over £110. This did come from the States. It took me 3 days for it to arrive, and I was stood by the door for the whole time just waiting, going crazy for it. No customs to pay, all sorted, just arrived, zero hassle. So, price-wise, £110 for the board. You then, I then paid a further £20.99 for the RAM and the extra bit. So, we're looking at about £150 for this, which does stand up pretty well when you consider how many different systems can be emulated using the MIDI project. So this is a list of cores that can be run without the extra RAM. So if you don't have the funds, you can actually run quite a lot of the cores without the extra RAM. So cost of entry can be kept a bit low, and you can add stuff on as you want. So I've only got 32 gig of RAM on 32 meg of RAM on my board. You really want 128 if you want to run some of the bigger Neo Geo games. But again, I digress. Whatever. I also put this fan on my system. As you can see, it's a little heatsink, and that's £8.49. So the current cost of the system, I also added this acrylic plate, but because I wanted it to look cool. The current cost, it's probably cost me just about £170 to £180 for everything to be up and running. That included a bigger SD card as well. So, you've bought your bits, you've put them all together. What do you do now? Well, first of all, you need to look at this list of systems that are supported. The MIDI does very, very good recreations of all of these systems, including, and this is a biggie for me, the Amiga. It does an amazing version of the Amiga called Minimig, which is ported over from a different FPGA, the MIDI project. This came across, and it's probably the most mature core on the system itself. It's wonderful. All right, so how we do it? Right, video is now hitting 7 minutes long, and I haven't even got too into it. So you've got your MIDI, you've hooked it up to your computer via HDMI, or if you wanted to get some add-on boards, VGA, whatever. It's now hooked into your display. You now need to flash your SD card. So get yourself an SD card reader. I've got a little one here. Plug it into your system. I'm now going to bring in my display capture here, and I'm going to move myself across. Way! You need to download Mr. Fusion. So Mr. Fusion, github.com, Mr-devel/Mr-Fusion. And this is, you flash this to an SD card, put it in your MIDI, away it goes. Download the latest release. You need some kind of program to flash it. I use something like, I generally like Banana Etcher. I've already downloaded Mr. Fusion. It's in one of my little directories here. Select the image, hit open, select your target, make sure you're flashing the correct thing. There we go, generic mass storage device. Using a 32 gig SD card here. I do actually have a 256, but I didn't want to reflash that for the purposes of this video. Hit flash. Ignore the pop-up windows. It shouldn't take very long at all. Please ignore the format requirements. Right. I always get failed when I flash it, but it does appear to work, so cool. Close that down. I'm gonna move myself back across. Ah! take out your SD card, and you just then insert it into your mister. My mister is just a little bit higher up here on a little shelf above my system. I'm now going to switch over to my capture card. So this is the mister hooked up directly into that. I'm adding power to it, and away it goes. So the first time it runs this, it'll take a few seconds to install. While you're waiting, perhaps have a little drink. Delicious water, by the way. So that's what the mister's displaying this. What it's actually doing is resizing the onboard Linux system to fill the entire card. Doing this in real time. It'll take a few moments. My mister is hooked up to Ethernet as well. You can use Bluetooth dongles with it. You can use Wi-Fi dongles with it. The supported list is on the wiki. It's good reading the wiki. There are some great resources. There is a dedicated forum for the mister. There is Discord, and some great information on there. Okay, so that appears to do it. It's now rebooting. The mister can boot up in a few seconds. Doesn't take long at all. Right, okay. So now that's the mister booting up. I'm going to switch over. I'm going to use my KVM to switch across. So here it says no files. I hit escape. As you can see at the top of the screen here, it's showing that I have a Bluetooth dongle connected. That's the Bluetooth icon. It's showing that I have network connected, and it's showing I have the extra RAM. That's what the little icons next to Mister mean. I've hit escape from where it says no files, and I'm going to go to scripts. This is a dangerous operation, I know. Do you want to continue? Yes, and don't ask again. I'm now going to hit the update script. This is why the Mister is nowhere near as complicated to use as people seem to believe. So what this is now going to do, I'm going to jump back to my main screen here. And move myself into this corner here. So what this script is doing is it's now going to update the Mister. Okay, we're back. That took a little while to get all of the cores up and running, but never mind. So here, if I hit escape now, go back to scripts, you'll see we've got loads of new scripts added here. I'm now going to turn SSH on, and I'm going to turn FTP on. The reason I have done that is because I'm now going to jump back to my PC. Oopsie, excuse me. Open up FileZilla. Now, I happen to know the IP address of my Mister is 192.168.197. The username is root, and the password is 1. You can change that. That's how it works out of the box. And if I now go to media, you'll see that I have all of my systems now available. This is where you stick things like your ROMs. So I'm going to go to my Spectrum directory here. And I'm going to drop a tap file into there. I'm going to go to the SNES directory and I'm going to drop Super Turrican into that. Hello, excuse the jump cut. This is in fact the day after the day before. I had a phone call and unfortunately I had to stop the recording and just pick it up again today. So where I left off, I just copied a few files across to the Mister using FTP. You don't have to use FileZilla. I use FileZilla because it's free, basically, but that's it. So to recap, to connect to your Mister using FTP, 192.168.197 is my host connection. It'll be different for you. Username, root, password 1, and then quick connect, and boom, you're into the Mister, and that's how you copy stuff across. A couple of changes from the last jump cut. I have now switched back to my big SD card, my 256 gigabyte one, and I've even plugged in my SSD for the A0486 core. So yeah, cool. When you connect to the Mister, if you go to Media and then FAT, that'll bring up everything on the SD card. And then when you go into your Games folder, that's where you can drop in all of your ROMs and things like that. And as you can see, we have a few here populated. Great. If you are struggling to track down ROMs and stuff like that, obviously piracy is a big no-no, but I'll give you a couple of phrases you might want to research. One of them is the Everdrive pack by Smoke Monster. There are packs that are pre-configured for use with the Mister. Also, if you are having problems with getting the cores to run properly, there is another couple of scripts out there. The official script is the update script. There is a script called update _all. And if you look for that, that adds a few more options to the update script. One of them is it pulls down the BIOS files. Again, that's a little bit of a legal grey area. I'd be a bit wary about using that if you have any issues with legality. If you want to do everything by the book, you need to own these systems, etc., etc. But I know how hard it is to get them. Right, moving on. I'm now going to switch over to the Mister now. Right, okay, so as you can see, I'm now in the corner, and we have the Mister. I'm going to press the button on the KVM, which switches over my input. There we go. And I'm turning on my Bluetooth controller, which will hopefully connect. I do have a couple of issues when I'm doing some fast switching. It doesn't like it so much, but I'm just going to pull the Bluetooth dongle out, stick it back in. That generally does the trick. But while I'm waiting for that to pick up, I'm going to go across to the computer. Core ZX Spectrum. Fire this one up. And it's dropped us into a recreation of a Spectrum 128K. Pretty cool. If you hit F12 on a keyboard, it will then bring you into a menu where you can adjust functionality, so you can say what kind of I'm going to change that to Kempston, joystick to Kempston. You can change the hardware, so if you really want to recreate a 48K, you can. But for the purposes of this, we're going to load a little game. Right, because it's a big list, it takes a few seconds to open it up. But I'm going to load up Trapdoor, which is a good example of how the Spectrum could do big sprites. I've also sped up the loading time on this, so it'll instantly load tape images rather than doing the whole do bip and taking 3 to 4 minutes, up to 8 minutes for some games. We are nearly there. There we go, Trapdoor. And then if I hit enter on the tape loader, boom, we're straight in. That might be a bit loud on the recording, I hope not. And here we are. I am now controlling Burke. If you're not from the UK, you might think, what on earth are you on about? Well, Trapdoor was a kids program where you were Burke and you had to do the thing upstairs. And Burke had a lovely West Country accent and would go, "Oh, globbits! Burke, get me a can of worms." Oi! Ghost. There! So yeah, that's the ZX Spectrum. It was a great little system, if you're not familiar with it. I'm now going to jump out of the chords. I'm going to go back to the main menu, and that is done by holding out Control, Shift, both Alts, and that's like a warm reboot to the main menu. So that was the ZX Spectrum core. Let's fire up a different arcade core. How about Galaxian? Can't go wrong with a bit of Galaxian, can you? Again, the same joystick I've just used for the Spectrum will work nicely for this. And I can't get too involved in playing these games because I've got a lot to show you. So that was an arcade core. As you can see, there are plenty of arcade cores represented, and there are more coming every day. As for the computers side of things, I've just shown you the ZX Spectrum. Let's bring up the Amiga. That's called Mini-Mig on this. Again, still using the same joystick, haven't had to change anything around. If I hit escape from that, we get into the Amiga workbench. This feels like Amiga as well. It's brilliant. I know I'm going at 1,000,000 miles an hour here, but, you know, want to get things looking good. The Shadow of Beast. Skip the introduction. Sometimes when I skip the introduction, you get like graphical corruption. And sometimes when you jump between cores, it's better to do a cold boot. Parallax scrolling. And VSync is spot on. It's great. The HDMI scaler in the Mister is fantastic. If you've never played Shadow of the Beast, it's one of those games that was iconic, but it's absolutely horrible to play. Oh no, yeah, here's the graphical corruption. Yeah, you get that sometimes if you skip the introduction. I don't know why it does that. But hit delete and you can go back to the main menu. It's just an issue with that. There were some amazing games on Amiga. The Atari ST is very well represented on here as well. Okay, right. Let's jump out of the Amiga core before I get too involved. But yeah, it acts like a slightly faster Amiga 1200, but you can do cycle accurate A500 instead. Console. Super Nintendo. I am going to show you a Super Effects game. Star Fox, there we go. So, this is showing one of the really clever parts of the core. That it can handle Mode 7, the Super Effects chip stuff beautifully. also that, again, when we're talking about this live, like we can actually overclock. To make Super Effects games run slightly smoother. Rather than 7 frames per second, you know, you might get like a few more. I love it. And you also have cheats as well, which is built in, which again, fantastic stuff. So back to the main menu. Can't do Super Nintendo without showing off the Genesis core. I want to watch. So you need to watch the scrolling on this because it's great. No VSync issues. The Genesis core. I'm not going to bother with the Game Boy Advance. But it's a bit beyond the scope of this. But suffice to say, they work beautifully. The TurboGrafx 16 works fine. The Mega CD Neo Geo is still being worked on. I can't run all the Neo Geo games because I don't have enough memory on my Mister, but that's something I can just buy. I can upgrade the memory on that one. You need 128 megabytes really for all of the games. You can run some of them. So Super Baseball here. As you can see, there's a line down the side. Try and sequence. Come on. And he's yeah, Neo Geo works fine. I am going to show one more core in the computer section, and that is the A0486. This is one of the newer ones. This is a really amazing achievement, in my opinion. I will just need to adjust this because I have scan lines on and it looks awful. There we go. It'll look awful on the video. So this is a launcher for the A0486 core, put together by a guy called Flynn's Bit. It's brilliant work he's done. And this, basically the A0486 core is a recreation of a 486 PC. You can run Windows 95 on it, basically. It also has room for a little Sound Blaster recreation as well. And it's wonderful. It really is just such a fantastic. And it emulates a 486. Yeah, whatever. I'm not going to last too long. Yeah, so Doom. Ah. Let's perhaps give this a few seconds. So yeah, Doom running on the A0486 core. This is one of the heavier hitting cores on here. I owned a 486. That was the system I got after my Amiga because I wanted to play Day of the Tentacle. going to reboot the core and run it in EM386 because I want to fire up Frontier. One of the great things about the core as well is it's got MIDI support. The Amiga and Atari ST have MIDI as well. This has MIDI support using an emulated MIDI card on the ARM side of the MiSTer, because you've got two processors. You've got your FPGA and you've got the ARM, and it does a recreation of an emulation of the MT32. Not so good, but it also does a sound canvas emulation, so you can have real MIDI emulated. So, yes, kids, this is what gaming used to look like. So that was the AO486 core. Just, I'm going to do a quick scroll through all of the systems that are available on the MiSTer. As you can see, there's plenty. All the consoles. All the arcade games. And if you want to know what's in other, we've got some sort of like strange little things here. And you can test the memory. One other thing, you can redefine your joystick. It'll work with most USB joysticks or Bluetooth dongles or Wi-Fi dongles. More information is available on the wiki. So, in conclusion, if you want the very best experience, the closest to original hardware, without owning the original hardware, the MiSTer is a very good route to that. Simply because it combines loads of really separate elements to make an enjoyable experience. The fact that you can use any USB joystick, keyboard and mouse combination, and it'll just work, is fantastic. The HDMI scaler is amazing. I've had my HDMI set in compatibility mode just for my capture card. When I'm not using the capture card, I can actually remove quite a few frames of latency from the experience by having it run in native resolution, which my monitor can handle, but my capture card can't. Other quality of life things, the cores are being updated all the time at the moment. Obviously, don't buy anything based on what might come out. Buy it on what's available now. But I have seen rumblings about a PlayStation 1 core which could come out at some point in the future. It could also not come out, you know, vaporware and all that. So anything pre-PlayStation 1, the MiSTer does an amazing job at. If you're an Amiga enthusiast, the MiSTer is probably just worth buying for that, because the MiSTer core, the Amiga core on the MiSTer, it's beautiful, it's brilliant. The Atari ST core is fantastic, the Commodore 64, Spectrum, these are all brilliant recreations of the classical systems. However, what the MiSTer is not for, it's not a particularly easy turnkey system. If you want a similar type of performance, FPGA simulations of systems, there are other alternatives such as the analog systems. And the analog systems are beautiful and they are nicely designed. You can use original cartridges with it and they are superb for collectors, but they are pricey. We're talking individual systems emulated on the analog, so you'd need to buy complete collections. While with the MiSTer, you buy one, it does everything. So again, it's not hobbyist. If you can use a Raspberry Pi, if you're okay with following instructions on a wiki, flashing an SD card, copying across ROMs, you'll have no problem with the MiSTer. Again, there's plenty of good YouTube tutorials out there, mine notwithstanding, and it's worth a go, definitely. So, what was I trying to say? Well, I've wandered strictly into rambling territory now. So, Here's the state of play. You can, if you just want to play games, you can run an emulator on your computer and it would probably be fine. Or you could buy a Raspberry Pi, put RetroPie on it, and again, it would be pretty good. But if you're going to do the Raspberry Pi thing, you're already halfway there to knowing how to do a Mister. If you have the money and you want the best experience, in my opinion, Mister is the way to go. And there's so many brilliant add-on boards for it. You've got USB hubs, you've got the input-output board, which gives you VGA output. You can hook these into a classic CRT for that really good retro experience. So, right, I'm rambling. I'm going to stop the video here. I'd like to say that the Mister's brilliant, and all kudos to all the developers, everybody who makes this project possible. And I've been All Your Bass Chris, and I hope you've enjoyed yourself. Thank you so much, and goodbye.